snip, tuck, fold, crease, tuck, tape.
It's not that complicated, Dad.
Wrap, crease, tape, twist, tape.
Ohio Lottery scratch offs make great holiday gifts. And play Holiday Bonus Millions with a 200 times multiplier and a $2 million top prize.
Fold, crinkle, crinkle, roll.
Plus, you can enter non-winning tickets in My Lotto Rewards for a second chance to win up to 1,000 times the price of your ticket.
Please crinkle, gate, fold, ring, curl, scrunch.
The best part, Dad? No wrapping required.
No tuck, tuck, fold?
No tuck, tuck, fold.
Give the gift of fun. Lottery players are subject to Ohio laws and commission regulations. Play responsibly.
Welcome to Mind Love, episode 295. Today's episode is all about how our minds get hooked on drama addiction and how to break free.
This is where disease comes from. All the bad things we think about stress is the interruption of that cycle, not the stimulus. We're like, oh, work is hard. That's causing me disease. It's not. Or this relationship is causing me stress, so I'm getting sick. It's not. It is not ever the stimulus. It is our ability and our capacity or our resilience to be with that stimulus and move through the cycle of a stress response. If we are not able to complete it, where we get overwhelmed, flooded, overstimulated, we're interrupting that cycle, that is where disease festers in the stagnation of that cycle, which is a constant for those with an addiction to drama.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
If this is your first time giving your mind a little love, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Mind love is a habit, and the more you give your mind that love and intention, the better you'll feel about yourself and your life. Plus, it's really a win-win because more subscribers means Mind Love attracts even more amazing guests to bring you their wisdom. So don't forget to subscribe. What's your relationship to drama? And no, I'm not asking if you were in the thespian club in high school. I'm asking, are you the drama queen of your circle? Or do you claim to hate drama while finding yourself caught up in it anyways? Or do you actually strive to keep your own life peaceful and stay out of other people's business? I have a confession. I think drama might be my guilty pleasure. When someone I know is going through something big, I can't help but joke that I want all of the details because I just don't have enough drama in my own life. But the truth is, we all thrive on drama a little bit, even if we think we don't. And how can we not? From reality TV to social media, we are constantly bombarded with sensationalized stories and conflicts. And it's not only easy to get swept up in the drama, but it's also, on some level, setting new expectations for our own realities. Our experiences shape our thoughts, our personalities, our behavior patterns, including what we see and hear every day. And our brains don't necessarily differentiate between real life and the drama that we watch on TV. Sometimes I even wonder if my sense of humor comes from watching too many sitcoms as a kid. My husband will tell you that a lot of my responses sound like a TV character, and I don't mind it. It keeps things kind of interesting. I actually had a friend in high school who watched so much Jack Black that he basically took on his personality. But most of us don't just stop at witty comebacks. We create or attract drama because it's what we expect, or we're bored without it. Picking fights, engaging in gossip, overreacting, feeling victimized, or seeking attention, those are all symptoms of being addicted to drama. In hindsight, I can think back to dozens of examples of creating drama or attracting it into my life. Almost every significant event in my life can be viewed through this lens. My teens and 20s were a series of avoidable situations that resulted in way more drama than necessary because of how I viewed myself and the world around me. I was always the hero of my story, which meant playing the victim or not giving people the benefit of the doubt. But I also thrived on other people's drama. And while it might seem harmless, it actually deregulates the nervous system, creating more stress and less peace, which can lead to mental and physical health issues. So how do we get ourselves out of this drama cycle? Well, that's what we're talking about today. Our guest is Dr. Scott Lyons, a licensed clinical psychologist and mind-body medicine practitioner. He's also the author of Addicted to Drama: Healing Dependency on Crisis and Chaos in Yourself and Others. He's going to give us some practical tools and strategies to break free from the cycle of drama addiction and find a path towards healing and wholeness. So, 3 key things we will learn are how our survival strategies and coping responses become embedded in the body, the 4 stages of the drama cycle, and the physical and mental costs of drama addiction, its impact on relationships, and how to heal from it. This is a really fun interview. My husband said he could hear me laughing from across the house. And as a side note, I was overcoming a cold, so please be forgiving of my voice. Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts: a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up, or text the word morning to 33777. And now let's welcome Dr. Scott Lyons to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
So, what inspired your recent topic on being addicted to drama?
Oh, well, it hasn't been so recent for me to delve into it. I have been delving into it my entire life. It actually was my doctoral work. I needed to pick a subject for my thesis, and I figured I'd pick myself and my own kind of journey in around drama and why I kind of unintentionally made life harder than it needed to be and more complicated than it needed to be. And was, in my own healing path, realized there was no resources out there. Like here's an example. Melissa, do you know anyone addicted to drama?
Oh, yeah, myself.
Oh, wow. We're going there already.
No, I definitely have been in the past.
Yeah.
It's funny though now, like I have a childcare helper and
Yeah.
she'll come in and I'm like, she's got drama at her other job. And I'm always like, tell me about it. I have no drama in my life. I need to hear yours.
Please give me the spice of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to feel something.
I want to feel alive. And that is what drama addiction is. It's like we often think it's like some extreme version of attention seeking, but it's not that at all. It's actually this extreme version of trying to feel alive in a world where we have felt more numb or things feel more mundane or boring. And in the extreme version of that, it's like a pervasive numbness for people who have had a lot of trauma or a lineage of trauma or grew up in a household of chaos where they had to clamp down to survive. And it shows up as like big and extreme and intense. And so people might assume like they want something out of that intensity. But the thing they want is not your attention, it's affirmation, sensation. It's knowing that they exist and they can belong through that existence.
Yeah, there was a quote in your book that was something like, addiction to drama isn't attention seeking, it's activation seeking. And I was like, ooh, that hit me right there because that is how I lived my earlier life. And I don't think, I mean, I definitely did not mean to, but there were a series of dramatic things that happened. And then I remember the calm after the storm. I didn't know how to live in the calm. And I specifically remember one of my relationships. It was my healthiest relationship I had ever had. I was only like 26 or something like that. But the ones before that were just so chaotic. There was cheating. There was a crime spree with one of them. It was
Oh
a
my
lot.
God. Can we get into the crime spree? We're not going any further until I hear more about the crime spree.
Oh yeah, my audience has heard this in probably pieces throughout the episodes, but I basically was dating someone who seemed just really mellow and non-dramatic. What I didn't realize is that I noticed something was off when he was no longer on meth because the meth kind of calmed him out. And so there was this series of unraveling where I realized he was cheating on me, and then he was an alcoholic and a meth addict. And long story short, I ended up
Can I just
finding out.
check? Did we date the same person?
I hope not.
I think we did.
Did you find out that yours had robbed over 50 houses? Because I did, and I was arrested for his crimes. With him, went through this whole 2-year spree of having to go into court. It was a lot. And so anyways, I
Oh my
I
gosh.
ran away to LA to get away from him. He
Yeah.
did chase me there. He moved into a halfway house like down the street, broke into my house, threw a brick through my windshield. I had to move again, and then he was finally arrested for another string of robberies and spent the next he got a minimum of 7 years in jail, but up to 11. And so that was a lot. And so
Wow.
I dated somebody after him that was just normal, and I did not know how to deal with it. And so I was
So
constantly
boring.
like picking fights and like
Yeah.
finding these dumb things to get upset at him about. And
Yeah.
I remember actually sitting there one day and being like, I feel very upset by this, but
Mm.
logically I know that I shouldn't. I'm going to attack him anyway.
Oh, that red flag couture, as I like to call it, when intensity is in replace of intimacy.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like it's what gets us hot and bothered. And we don't even know why. And even the logical part of us is going, this doesn't make sense. And then we roll down the drama hill and we just start fights to feel something, to feel some version of connection. Because, drama is a social glue. We don't
Mm.
often think about it, but the thing that bonds people almost more than anything else, is shared pain.
Trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding, or as I like to call it, drama bonding, because I wrote a book about drama and just changed the T
Oh
to a
yeah.
D, basically. But it's trauma bonding. I actually find slightly different than drama bonding in the sense that why I call it drama bonding is because it's like we're throwing logs on each other's fire. It's intensifying one's own experience as opposed to helping them process it. Where trauma bonding is just a magnetism of shared pain. And then if we go the extra effort to drama bond, it's like, oh, did you know they did this? And hey, I think I dated that same ex. And let's talk dish. Let's really dive into all the toxic men in our life. And we're just like throwing logs on each other's drama fire and getting it so hot and heated until we don't even know what we're talking about anymore. We're just like erupting and rolling down the drama hill together, so to speak.
Yeah, and on this relationship,
Yeah.
it was I don't think he knew what he got himself into.
No.
The one before that, the one that was extremely
Yeah.
toxic, and
Yeah.
that one I do feel was more of the trauma bonding.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that I somehow allowed myself to even get wrapped up with this person is his
Yeah.
dad died the weekend I met him, and my dad had died a few
Oh.
years before. And I had gone through my own sort of self-sabotage spiral, and a lot of people
Mm.
had been telling me, you need to get over this, and like you got to just move on with your life. Mind you, I'm like 20 years old. My dad had died when I was 19. I'm like, what do you mean? You have no
Gosh.
idea what this is like. And I remember actually there were choice points of knowing I was self-sabotaging because I needed to like prove my pain externally. And so it was
Yeah.
a whole different form of the drama addiction.
Yeah.
But I remember feeling like nobody understood what I was going through, and I was just isolated. And so when I met this person and his dad died, I was like determined to be the person who understood him in a way that nobody understood me. And
Mm.
what that did was make a lot of excuses for him, kind of blind myself to a lot of the behaviors until it was too late and I was so wrapped up in it, I didn't know how to get out.
Yeah. Damn, that's so intense. And you're talking about something that's so specific to in like entering into other people's drama, which is unintentionally enabling them by being
Yes.
a martyr, by being a support system, and then having your own physiological consequences and emotional and social consequences, as you shared, of getting like arrested. That's such a social consequence of being quote unquote a support system to someone. But what one of the things that those who have an addiction to drama do is they pull people in. They pull people into the chaos as a way of feeling connection. It's like a false sense of intimacy, a false sense of belonging that comes from, as we're talking about the drama bonding, literally a synchronization of crisis and chaos with each other. And if you're not in that same sort of aspect of chaos in your life, I'm going to pull you into mine until I feel like, ooh, we belong.
How did you realize that you were addicted to drama? And did you start to find your way out before your thesis, your doctorate? Or was this kind of your process of healing?
I don't know why it took me so long to invest in good bedding. I resisted it for years, but something flipped in me about 3 years ago. And now I'm basically a pillow connoisseur. I've tried them all, and I get weirdly excited about good bedding. Because here's the thing, we spend a third of our lives in bed, and the quality of that time affects literally everything else, which is why I'm so excited to tell you about my latest obsession, Lagoon Sleep Pillows. What sets them apart is their matching system. You take a quick 2-minute quiz about your sleep style and your preferences, and then they match you with your perfect pillow. I was matched with their Otter pillow, and I am so impressed. Lately, I've just needed more support, and this seems to cradle me in all the right places. I'm also low-key obsessed with their travel pillow, which I use for way more than just travel. I actually hug it, use it as leg support, and of course, take it on trips with me. Well, the secret is in their adjustable fill. You can add or remove it to get that perfect alignment for your spine. A study even found that the right supportive pillow can improve sleep quality by 63%. And Lagoon lets you try their matched pillow for 100 nights risk-free. Free returns, no questions asked. Falling asleep has never been easier. I toss and turn less and just wake up feeling refreshed every morning. Go to lagoonsleep.com and take their awesome 2-minute sleep quiz to find your match. Use the code MIND for 15% off your first purchase. You know what's funny? We spend so much time feeding our minds, reading books, listening to podcasts, learning new things, but then we grab whatever's convenient to feed our bodies. And I get it. Life is busy, and sometimes a drive-through feels like the only option. But that's why I take Field of Greens. It's a greens powder made with whole organic fruits and vegetables. No extracts, no lab-made stuff, and just 1 scoop a day gives you simple, real nutrition. Field of Greens feeds your body with fruits and vegetables medically chosen to support your heart, vital organs, and immune system. And let me tell you something. Since I started taking it, I've noticed these little changes that show me how nutrient depleted I must have been before. Like the ridges in my nails, gone. My sleep, so much better. And my stomach just feels happy. You know that dreaded afternoon crash that has you reaching for more coffee or sugary snacks? Well, that's not happening for me anymore. When your body is actually nourished, it runs so much better. I've tried other greens powders before, but Field of Greens is genuinely different. The quality is next level, and you can taste it. It's become my go-to, especially on those days when my eating isn't exactly Instagram worthy, because we all have those days, right? And here's the thing. They are so confident that you'll love it too, that they offer a 100% money-back guarantee. That's how much they believe in their product. So I got you 15% off your first order and free rush shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code MINDLOVE. That's promo code MINDLOVE at fieldofgreens.com. fieldofgreens.com.
How did you realize that you were addicted to drama? And did you start to find your way out before your thesis, your doctorate? Or was this kind of your process of healing?
I think I'm still healing because we're all human and it takes time. I think it was really clear to me when I was in my late 20s and life had me at the throat. Like I was just ended my first major relationship, which was extraordinarily toxic, and I kept going back to it. I don't like to use the word toxic, but for this relationship I do. Part of it wasn't toxic because they were toxic. It was the dynamics. And this individual had a lot of addictions. They had a lot of mental illness that they were dealing with. And I would break up and go back, break up and go back, break up and go back. When they finally ended it, and I didn't have the choice to come back, is when I sort of spiraled. I had self-abandoned so many times for this individual, not only this individual, but in my life, that I couldn't find my way home to me. So I was lost. I was dealing with a lot of neurological issues from just the pervasive stress of being with that individual and not and creating some of that toxicity myself and being in it. I'd lost my health insurance at the time because of a issue with my grad school. I lost a big job. Things were just spiraling and like on top of each other. And usually I could thrive off all this chaos and stress, but it had reached a point where I imploded. And I moved in with my parents for a couple months because I was like, I can't even take care of myself. Like I didn't know if I could get out of bed some days. I couldn't get out of bed some days. And I got rid of everything in my life. I cut off my social life. I cut off my professional life to the arts, and life was bland. Like I went to this in my own dramatic way, the extreme kind of approach to healing, which has become super secluded in my parents' house. And I noticed that what I assumed was like withdrawal symptoms because I was like throwing up blood and like having really crazy stuff. I had this like weird thyroid thing. I lost like 20 pounds very quickly. Things that just made no sense. And I was like, oh, I'm detoxing from the toxicity because that's what it looks like. Now I know it was actually withdrawal symptoms from my own addiction to drama because I took away all the stimulus and I felt better, quote unquote, better or normal when I started picking fights. Like I'd pick a fight with my sister out of nowhere or pick a fight with my parents who were taking care of me, or I would call a friend and get really excited when they were gossiping, or I'd watch a movie that was super violent and I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling better. And I was like, what? Or at a certain point, I was like, what is going on? How could I feel better from picking a fight with someone? What I thought I was detoxing, or when I would call my ex, that was a real sign. And we get into a fight and I'd leave and I'm like, finally, I feel like I got my power back. And I was like, wait, what is going on? That's not how power is. You get to feel agency and control and power in your life is through fighting with someone. And that's really when I started to slow down enough to go, I think the problem is me. Maybe the problem is, yep. The problem is definitely I am a contribution. I'm a significant contribution to my own suffering. And noticing more and more as I got, started creating more space between my own revving to stress myself out and finding all the conditions that would do it. Like I left the arts. I paused on grad school. I stopped the things that I could really use as fuel to get myself stressed out. And I would then notice all the other ways I was doing it. I would start going, like I'd be in a meditation class or yoga class and I'd start thinking about my ex and like imagining a conversation I would have with them if we ever walked into the same yoga class, and like what would happen. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have all these subtle ways to keep myself from relaxing, from finding stillness, from finding comfort or ease. And that's one of the really telltale signs of an addiction to drama is you're in the bathtub, you're at a meditation class, you're with yourself in some easeful way in a garden, and all of a sudden you are thinking about your grocery list, or you're imagining a conversation you would have with someone who made you mad, or that some story about a parent that's really sad. Just it's which is different than like all of a sudden you're finding stillness in your processing. It's more of like all of a sudden you're finding a certain level of quietness in yourself, and there's something reflexively that takes you out of it. And there's a constant to that. It keeps you in the status quo normal of like dis-ease, anxiety, urgency, all these sort of symptoms of what addiction to drama looks like. It keeps you in that state of readiness, of vigilance, that being prepared for the next bad thing to happen. Because if as most of us know, someone addicted to drama, they're on the lookout. They always feel like there's something happening, something bad is happening. Why me? Or why does life do this to me? And there's a way in which their attention is really focused on all the bad shit of life. And part of that is their whole nervous system has adapted to be on the vigilant lookout for the next threat. So of course, if that's what their nervous system is now built around, that's what they're going to see. That's how they're going to perceive reality, is a place where that life in the world is dangerous and against them.
I was actually reminded as you were talking about a period in my life.
Hmm.
And I know at this time well, I wouldn't have defined it before this interview as being addicted to drama,
Yeah.
but I have spoken about this time in my life as not being able to be alone very well. I
Mm.
remember at this time saying, I hate being alone with my thoughts, thinking that it was just like a normal talking point and not realizing how unhealthy that is. But at this time, it was in the beginning of my healing journey. I was getting certified in yoga. I was starting to surround myself with different people. It was really the kind of launch pad, but
Yeah.
I had not processed a lot of my emotions. There were still things that I was unraveling for the next like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I remember in particular finding out certain friends were hanging out and that I wasn't invited. And of course, this sent me into a spiral, even though it should have had nothing to do with me. I literally wasn't invited. It wasn't, it didn't have anything to do with me. But I remember like sending some snarky text message and just being like, sorry, this was impromptu. Like, if you want to come, something like that. But I spiraled emotionally. And what I would do when I was feeling emotion, whenever I was kind of making myself a victim, it was like
Mm.
I had to intensify it.
Yeah.
And I would always bring down the box of, I have this little box of my dad's keepsakes, things that remind me of him. And there was this one letter that he wrote to me in it. And there's like tear stains on it to this day. But I would open it up and read it so I would have like even more of a catharsis. And
Yes.
for some reason, that's the image that popped up when you were talking about
Yeah.
how we kind of self spiral.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wouldn't have said at that time before sort of learning what drama addiction looks like that I was addicted to drama. It was just like, oh, I needed a release, or oh, this was my time to process, or some sort of justification for that action.
Yeah.
And so,
But it's interesting that it had to get quote unquote big enough to process,
yeah, yeah,
right?
I had to feel more. I was already crying. What did I need to feel more of? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Have you ever done this where you're like driving in the car, you're like sad about something, and you like choose to play a song that amplifies that sadness, like an Adele
I have
song?
at least 12 playlists that are just called sad.
Will you send them to me? Um,
Yes.
like that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, it's something I think so many of us can relate to of like, wait, why did you play that song? Yes, it could have been validating, but then it also amplified the intensity of your emotions, maybe more than what you had before, maybe to a level that swells above what you can actually process and metabolize, to a degree where it's flooding you and distracting you as opposed to being contacted and moved through.
Ooh, that was just an epiphany I didn't know I needed.
You're welcome. I, and that's really what an addiction to drama also looks like. Is like I have this glass in my hand, and this example is not the best example, but I'm going to give it anyways. It's like there's a crack in this glass. It's not enough to, have the water pour out, but it definitely is noticeable to me. But if I put, let's say, if I want to distract myself from that there's a fracture in my glass, I take out a fire hose from down the street and I just blast the water into the glass. And the intensity and the extreme, I'm certainly going to be distracted by the intensity of that, and I'll forget about the little crack in my glass. Now, if we look at that as like a trauma piece, the underlying pain and trauma, we know things like stretch, like in yoga, if you stretch a lot, it distracts from an underlying pain. That the intensity of sensation, going and jumping off a cliff with a parachute, going and getting into a fight with someone, those adrenaline rushes also produce a euphoric experience, a endorphic euphoric experience. So like when you go for a run, that power you feel from a run, and it also is releasing endorphins. It's a pain reliever or a pain distractor. Stress does the same thing. And when I say stress, it's also like intensified emotion is also in that bracket. When I go into these intense, extreme emotional responses, which is part of like the stress response, I get a little pain relief. I get a little amped up. That power that you feel after you go for a run, or you like, have you ever felt like really angry and just felt powerful at the same time?
Yes.
when you have lived an existence of numbness, pain, trauma, which might look like depression, which might look like anxiety, feeling some sense of power and control is everything. And if you can get that out of the rise of rage, out of the intensity of some extreme emotion, you're going to have this whole dopaminic experience that says, hey, I don't know what you did. This is the brain talking to the body. I don't know what you just did, but repeat it, because suddenly we feel alive. And then if we know we're alive, that means we might feel things like belonging and connection. We might feel like we're not just in constant threat. So let's reinforce this behavior. I don't care what the behavior is, says the brain, but it definitely feels better than the malaise of life. So what is your go-to sad song, by the way?
Hallelujah.
Oh, which version?
All of them. They're all on different sad playlists. I have a lot of them. But that was one of the when my dad died, I created his playlist for his funeral. And also 2 years before that, one of my close friends died. I'd created the playlist for their funeral. Don't recommend doing that, because you're going to put on songs that you love, and then those songs will forever be tied to death. So it's why I have a lot of them. And then there's Spotify that's like, play other songs like these. And I'm like, I didn't even know Bette Midler could make me cry.
Thank you, Pat. Oh, that's really funny. Not the other part, the Bette Midler part. Yeah. I would definitely rock some Adele. When I was angry, Alanis Morissette, the first album.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, so good. And it, that absolute amplification of that little feeling that suddenly felt seen and justified by the extremeness of the song. That is like the song threw logs on my emotional fire. And
it's so interesting too, because I used to look at it like, because I had a lot of numbing behaviors.
Yeah.
And I still have to watch myself from that. But a lot of my 20s were unraveling addictions, from anything from Adderall to alcohol to bulimia, all the things. And so I really related to numbing. And so my manufactured catharses would confuse me, because I'm like, well, what is it about that? Is it that I haven't been feeling at all and now I have to feel a ton? But when I look at it, the ways that I would numb were not ways that I was actually numbing everything. They were still these high sensation, like doing like 8 pills of Molly in a night. Like, I'm feeling something. It's just not my emotions. It just 8.
Wow, lightweight.
Oh yeah, I went through a phase of doing Molly like 5 nights a week, and a lot of it. But when you're in LA and you're a girl, the drugs are free, and so why limit yourself?
To all the listeners, if that's your choice of what you want to do next in life, LA.
Advice from my lower self.
Yeah. That's our next podcast together.
Yes. We'll actually create a whole new podcast.
A whole new podcast
just
called
advice from our lower
self.
We'll record the last 20 minutes of all my mind love interviews will just be that, and we can get out all the things that our lower self was nagging at us to say that we overrode for an hour.
On my podcast, I do that, and it's an advice column called Dear Midwestern Mom, which is my like, being a therapist for a long time. You don't get to give that sort of snarky response you'd love to give if you like. I grew up with a love language of pervasive humor. Oh, not pervasive humor, a provocative humor rather. And so that is my love language. And so being a therapist, you do not get to practice that love language very often. And, I care about everyone I work with. And so that's hard for me to be to sit back and not make jokes. And I still do. I will admit that, that if people who still work with me, half the time is like a comedy hour. And it's therapy comedy hour, but it's playful. And but not enough. Anyway, so I had to create a little section where I get to finally say the snarky advice I would never actually say to someone.
I love that.
Very cathartic. It's very cathartic. And so catharsis is not the same as emotional process.
You know what's interesting about mindfulness? It's not just about being present in the moment. It's about being thoughtful about the future. We meditate, we exercise, we work on ourselves, all to create a better tomorrow, right? But there's one piece of the future planning puzzle that nobody likes to talk about. I get it. Life insurance feels heavy. But here's the thing. Just like meditation is an act of self-care, getting life insurance is an act of family care. It's about making sure your love continues to support your family, even when you're not there to do it yourself. That's why I want to tell you about Select Quote. They're one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience helping over 2 million customers. Their licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. And here's what's cool. They actually reward you for taking care of yourself. If you're in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million, no medical exam required. And it's way more affordable than you might think. You could even get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. We just did this all recently after putting it off for years, and I can't tell you the peace of mind just from getting it done. So get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/mindlove. Go to selectquote.com/mindlove today to get started. That's selectquote.com/mindlove.
So catharsis is not the same as emotional process. Catharsis is an explosion, an unorganized or disorganized emotional expulsion. And we know this from like the 60s to 70s when they were doing like catharsis therapy, and it would often lead to re-traumatization. And why, there's a difference about getting like a volcano, like in an addiction to trauma, it's like you're throwing stressors on top of stressors on top of stressors on top of stressors until you have this big high, which that feels like power. And then that power has to go somewhere and you get the expulsion and you do feel like, a weight off your shoulders. And it's disorganized. And if you've ever seen someone in the throes of drama or you've been that person, it's disorganized. It's like sloppy. It is not like, I'm feeling some sadness right now. And that sadness needs me to really feel heard. Like none of that. None of that organized connection with your emotion. It's messy. And yes, you feel more. The build up to that expulsion of emotion is you rise above the threshold of numbness and you feel something. And that feels amazing. And that release, even though it's disorganized, it also feels good because it's been a building tension. And even though you've been using that building tension like a battery pack to function through life, siphoning off of it to like stay awake, to stay engaged, it also has a cost for anyone. And so the expulsion of it, disorganized as it is, has also a hormonal response that goes ding, 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 that felt nice. And the problem is with disorganized expulsions, you never actually get to attend to the underlying emotion and the needs that were there. Because all that energy, all that stressors, all the stuff you're adding on top are distracting from the underlying true core emotions and needs. And so in distracting yourself, you get to protect yourself from the pain of being in relation to your emotions or the trauma, but you're also self-abandoning yourself simultaneously. And self-abandoning was really important to survive at some point if you had trauma. If you were here, you would feel like you're drowning in the pain and the suffering. And so you self-abandon, or it's called auto-regulation, as a strategy to say, I can't deal with this now. Hopefully I'll come back to this later. That's what disassociation is. I can't be here to be with this. So I'm going to like vacate my body. I'm going on vacation for my pain. And hopefully I'll come back and deal with it. Same thing happens in birth. Yeah. I mean, you can talk to that. You just had a kiddo.
Oh yeah. The interesting thing about catharsis, I'm loving this kind of differentiation because I feel like a lot of us are taught that a catharsis is a really important part of emotional processing. Like we're actually feeling our emotions. But what it sounds like is that we're not feeling our emotions in the way that it's processing them. We're just sort of distracting ourselves with another big sensation. So, is there ever any benefit to catharsis, or is that just sort of a byproduct of maybe numbing or not processing?
So there's the question comes down to, and it's a little kind of hard to describe a little bit, but if you can be present with the emotional, the movement of the emotions, then that's organized, that's healthy. If it's bigger than you are, if it's faster than you can glean meaning from and be in relationship to the underlying needs that are accompanying those emotions, that is a disorganized catharsis. Emotions are a compass. They are signals, somatic signals. So they come from the body to guide us towards something. Hey, joy, that feels good. We should do that again. So we experience the visceral experience of joy. Anger lets me know my boundaries have been challenged or violated. I should attend to that. So I feel the signal that my boundaries have been challenged or violated, called anger. They are a compass towards action. They are a compass towards adaptation, so that we can continue to thrive in life. They are not meant to be our junk food. They're not meant to be used in a way to get us more riled up or to distract ourselves from ourselves. And yet they can be. So I can overwhelm myself with something so as not to feel myself. And if my catharsis, so to go back to your question, if my release of emotions takes me and I don't feel it, I'm not in relationship to it, but it's just this big thing, no, sorry, it's not helping. And I feel very clear after many years of doing both, of getting to the point of differentiation. Um, because here's what happens after catharsis, and there's actual research on this, is we go through withdrawal symptoms, and those show up as boredom and anxiety. With an emotional release, the healthy kind, we go into what's called restoration, which is the restoring of the basic cellular building blocks of energy. In a catharsis, you go into the withdrawal or into a collapse, and you never truly enter into that restoration stage. So you become bored, you become anxious, and you become exhausted. And how do you get some energy when you're exhausted? I don't know. How about another hit of drama?
Okay, I'll delete 11 of the playlist, but I'm keeping one.
Deal. But send me that one. I mean, look,
We'll
drama's
merge
also,
ours.
yeah, we'll merge ours. Look, drama's also playful and fun. I mean, like, I see all these comments on my like Facebook or Instagram posts about my book, and they're like, I hate the drama, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And I'm like, did you need to say it in that way? Like, here's an example of drama playing itself out. I hate drama, capitalized. And I was like, you're using the actual tools, devices of drama to explain how you hate drama. Just to be clear. But other people are really funny. They're like, I hate the drama, but I love K-pop drama or Korean drama.
I didn't even know that was
Or,
a thing.
oh my gosh, such a thing. Such a big thing. I've never seen it, but like I've seen like t-shirts that say like I love Korean drama, Korean soap opera drama or something like that. And it was like things like that. It's like, well, I hate the drama, but I love going to the theater. Or I love other people's drama, just not my own. And it's funny because we don't even necessarily recognize that we get something from that. If we watch that soap opera, if we go to that theater, if we listen to somebody else's gossip, but we don't participate, we still get a physiological response. We still get a stress response. We are still engaging in the physiological and emotional process of drama by being a bystander. There is no neutrality here. So if you're like, I hate drama, but I do love watching those reality shows, and they are such a mess. Oh my gosh. I have a friend who I think is going on one of the housewife shows, and we were laughing about it because she really is like not interested in the drama. So we were coaching about what to do about it. And anyways, but if you find yourself going, oh, I love watching it. Like if you're even listening to the story and you're like, wait, I want to go back and hear more details about like what happened when you were in jail, Melissa. Like, did you meet anyone? Did you, did you get in any fights? Like if you're like hankering, if your curiosity is more about the narrative than Melissa's experience, that's a pretty good indicator you might have a little propensity for the drama.
That is me. It's like actually well known that I will ask for more details, as mundane as they seem, because I need to know, I need to paint the full picture of what's happening. I'm like, no, but what shoes was he wearing? Why did he trip? Like, why does he do bunny ears instead of loop, swoop, and pull? That's why he tripped, and this is why it happened, and I'm gonna dissect this all.
Because you're creating the full narrative. You want the
Yes.
full, what's called the dramatic narrative. And it's like you're picturing in your head and you're playing it out, and you get to play it out even after they left, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so they gave you the gift of a dramatic narrative that you get to have a dramatic response to, a physiological and emotional response to. That is the generous gift of drama. It just keeps giving.
Or like The Bachelor will end and I'll go to Twitter to see if I can find out any other details that didn't make it to the show. Or this is my healthier outlet of drama. And I'm
Sure.
going to do air quotes of healthier because I'm not sure now. but it's funny. It took my husband a couple of years to realize this, but I will sometimes respond to things just because it's the funnier response that might be on a sitcom rather than the adequate way to respond to my husband. So
Like
he
what? Give
used
us some examples.
just like anything. I wish I could think of something off the top of my head. It happens probably 100 times a day where I'll just like shoot back with something that'll almost sound snarky or like all of a sudden I'm a character that I'm not really, and he'll respond back like I'm serious, and I'll look at him like, that was just a response for my show. He's like, oh yeah, the show that's running in your in your
Oh, yeah,
mind. This is my
Wait,
sitcom. If people were watching, they would laugh
oh
on
my
this
gosh.
response, not the other one, even though there's no one around but us.
Yes, Melissa, do you also imagine every once in a while, like you're walking on the street, you have your like music in, and it's like, oh, this is the sound score to my movie that's being filmed right now. And everyone's like, and just like these little moments of going like, this is how I'm walking in the movie. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, and sometimes I hear audience applause when no one's actually around.
Are we twins?
Did my own show.
Are we drama twins?
Hopefully, you can star in my movie. We'll do a crossover.
Oh my gosh, I love a good crossover of our movies. That's really funny. And people might be like, this sounds super narcissistic. And you're welcome. No, just kidding. But it is like there's a way in which it's not, I wouldn't say it's classically narcissist at all. And classically narcissism is actually, most people think it's like, oh, they just love themselves. Ooh, loves, they hate themselves. First of all, know that. And their obsession with themselves is because they are in a jail, and they are the only person in that jail. And so like when we talk about like these moments of like being in our own movie, it is a representation of probably having spent a fair amount of time in the entrapment of the jail that we call numbing, in which we are locked in ourselves, separated from other people, separated from the world. And that's a trauma response. And so if you start to like, when we're doing it playfully, we're like making, we're in our own movie. We have this very playful banter about it, but it also is a reflection of a strategy to navigate being so alone. So the pervasive isolation that comes with trauma, and very much is the base of an addiction to drama.
I thought of an example.
Oh, good.
That
Thank
happened
you.
last night.
Yeah,
It was
spill
one of
it.
those times where my husband was he makes a good amount of meals at this point because I'm always breastfeeding or whatever.
You're
And
making
he
other meals.
yes, and he said he was gonna cook, and in my mind I started to get a little agitated and I wanted to say, like, where is my food? And so saying it in a comedic tone, and I was just like, I said something like, "When are you gonna cook, slave?" And so I actually got to get out my emotion of being sort of irritated that it was taking longer than he wanted,
Mhm.
and even say it in the tone I wanted to, but I added a little humor value to it, and then he
Mhm.
started laughing, and he's like, "Okay, I'm making it right now." But there's a lot of things like that in my household where I'll just sort of take it to a new level because I think it'll be funny while
Look,
expressing my emotion.
look, a lot of comedians have made their platform and their life off their own sort of like addiction to drama and channeling it into a really comedic place. Like I did stand up. It wasn't good. I mean, my mom thought I was good, but I wasn't that good. But it's an excellent channel. I was in the arts for years. I got to channel all that desire for intensity and extremes onto a stage. I got to live every night being anxious and nervous before every performance, then the high of performing and pulling people into my world every night for years. And then when I stopped doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, I got certified in skydiving. And of course,
Really?
and the moment I got the certification, I was like, okay, I never want to do this again. It kind of talks to
Com-
my,
commitment issues?
yeah. No, it was the goal was reached, and after that, I started to realize
Boring.
part of the reason I did it was because I thought it would be cool to tell people that I did. And so then the moment that I got certified, I was like, well, there's no more goal here. I don't want to
Mm,
just keep risking my life.
yeah.
I was risking my life to impress other people, let's be clear.
Yeah. You were living your life to tell the story of it. So
I
I,
know.
I I know we're addicted to drama. What can I say? Look, and I hope those who are listening can hear the playfulness in this because I think, well, it has serious consequences for the individual and those people around them. And it's been such a shame thing. I mean, there were no books, there was no research on addiction to drama. There was just articles about like how to navigate a drama queen. First of all, what a gendered, crappy kind of connotation to also why a queen? I mean, I like as opposed to like a princess.
Or a
Oh,
peasant.
I know why. A queen, because they were like, yeah. Or a peasant, yeah.
A drama peasant isn't nearly as appealing to want to be. So maybe we should twist the
Who doesn't want to
connotations
be
a
a
little.
queen or, some royalty, a drama royal?
But you talk about the
Oh,
serious consequences,
yeah.
and one of the things that
Yeah.
I was surprised by is that it can actually manifest into physical symptoms.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
us about that.
Yeah. So it can make you grow an extra leg.
For
Yeah.
men, that doesn't sound so bad. For women, I
Oh,
don't know.
wow. You went there. I was baiting you and you went there.
I'll
Good for
always take the
us.
bait.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, so when we think about like if I said to you, stress is bad, you'd probably shake your head because you've heard it in every health class, you've read it in every magazine. Well, I'm gonna say something that's a little provocative. Stress is great. If you didn't have a stress response, you would die. Doesn't that sound dramatic? I like adding the drama in there. But
I felt something.
you felt something. Where did you feel that? Everywhere. So when we think about stress, it's a very simple process. For stress, we get what's called activated. It's that all that hormonal release. It's basically the energy reserves being unlocked so that you can go into the next stage, which is called mobilization. Mobilization means you take energy into action in order to adapt. So our stress response system is our adaptation system. Here's a stimulus, here's a ball coming at me. For example, I have an activation response, I have a mobilization, I move out of the way of the ball, or I catch the ball. We could say fight or flight. Yeah. Then I have a deactivation phase. The muscles relax a little bit, the nerves get unhinged, my I more blood flow to my organs again so I can rest and digest the emotions that came with that experience. Then, if once I've completed the digestion or metabolization of those emotions, and I've continued to relax a little bit, then I can go into a restoration phase, which is what I was talking about earlier. And restoration means I'm building up that ATP again. I'm building up the energy to go and keep adapting in the dance of life. If I interrupt that cycle, if I do not get into completion, this is where disease comes from. All the bad things we think about stress is the interruption of that cycle, not the stimulus. We're like, oh, work is hard. That's causing me disease. It's not because, or this relationship is causing me stress, so I'm getting sick. It's not. It is not ever the stimulus. It is our ability and our capacity or our resilience to be with that stimulus and move through the cycle of a stress response. If we are not able to complete it, where we get overwhelmed, flooded, overstimulated, we're interrupting that cycle. That is where disease festers in the stagnation of that cycle. And so for those who are addicted to drama, they get all that revved up energy, that activation, like we were talking about. They don't quite get mobilization. Sometimes, but it looks like more of a disorganized mobilization. Like they're like, because what they're doing is instead of adapting, they're doing activities to generate more energy, more emotion, more intensity, more extremes. Then they have this cathartic outburst, super disorganized, super sloppy, rolling down the hill. They're not even present. They're blacked out, basically, in the eruption of their emotions. Then, because they never properly went through the channels of metabolizing the experience, they don't get to the rest. They're never building the energy. They're being constantly flooded by the hormones without the uptake of them. So it does start to affect the immune system. It starts to affect your memory center. It starts to affect the gray matter of your brain. It starts to affect the functionality of your adrenals and kidneys and your organs. It affects your skin. All these things that you might have read about the ills of stress are actually the interruption of your stress response, which is a constant for those with an addiction to drama. They cannot complete that cycle because the rest and digest phase brings them too close to that vulnerability that they will be victims to whatever they are not prepared for. They would not be vigilant enough for the next threat that will come. So they cannot enter that rest, that digestion of emotions that would also bring them too close to the original pains. Or it was never modeled in their house, so they don't even know how to go into that if they grew up in a household of parents with an addiction to drama or chaos. So they never get to restore, so they are living life on empty. Match that with our urgency culture, which is pushing us faster than we can process. We are all in some version of being overflooded, overstimulated, and underprocessed and under-resourced by our own systems of support. Cheery.
Ooh, if that's not motivation, since having kids, the amount of things I tried to heal, or I did heal, worked on, got somewhere with it in my 20s, it was a lot. I went into self-development. I started trying to fix my life. And I felt like I was getting to a pretty good place, although there's always something to be worked on, until I had kids. And then all of a sudden, the reflections of like, do I want to pass this on? What habits and behaviors am I modeling right now? And so even from the little things, I can imagine how many people are now, because if you're looking at addiction to drama as an addiction to some sort of sensation, then imagine what social media is doing to all of us. And all of the amazingly produced TV shows like Handmaid's Tale. Like, I actually usually have to sit down and process. Oh my gosh. You want to feel something? I'll watch it again. Yeah. The last season's coming up. It is wild, but you can't watch that show and not feel something, especially now that I have kids. I didn't have it when I first started. I didn't have any kids. Now I'm like, oh my God, what if this was reality? I'm like superimposing it into my life. But all of these things that are meant to make us feel and meant to make us come back to the app, to the show, to whatever it is, it's just sort of fueling our addiction to drama. So how do we start to heal? Is it just a boredom detox? Do I need to go to like a tent in the middle of the woods with no electronics for like 3 months?
I would love to see you do that. And I would love if we could film it just to see the
So you
crazy
can see the drama from the
so I can see
outside.
the drama from the outside. Wait, is that bad?
I don't think that's the point.
Oh, okay. So we're not talking about your next reality show. Okay. Yeah, you're right. The social media in general are all replicating the ways in which an addiction to drama has formed. So what may have been 20 years ago on more of a micro scale in terms of the conditions, we're now seeing on a macro scale. A lot of folks are addicted to drama. And there's scale. It's a scale, you know? So going to the woods and doing a detox, are you talking about like a desert, like Burning Man type of situation? Or do you have to be alone? What were you thinking for your reality show that I'm gonna
I
watch?
feel like I would feel too much at Burning Man. I was always known for like taking the pill before I found out what it was. So maybe I
Oh,
shouldn't go
adventurous.
there.
Look, what you're talking about is like a very abstinence only approach, which is like, oh, just stop the heroin. First of all, you're going to have withdrawal symptoms. And so you have to be prepared for that. You're going to have withdrawal symptoms from the drama. You're going to start to find the itch of where you can get the next hit of drama. And the thing is in the desert, you probably have a harder time getting heroin than drama because you always have your mind to replay memories and stories with. So it takes a long time because you're going to catch yourself in an infinite of ways in which you rev yourself up, in which you keep getting that hit of crisis and chaos. So the first piece of it really is awareness of like, how might I be contributing to this current situation? And that's a hard question to ask ourselves. Or like, this scenario feels familiar. Why do I have found myself? Why have I found myself in a similar situation? Why have I found myself in a similar relationship that's unfulfilling or chaotic? And to start to recognize our not us as the issue, but as the issue of like going like, don't shame yourself. That's just adding logs to the fire of numbness. But what I would recommend is going, okay, is this something I want? Like really getting to the question, is this level of pain necessary? Is me writing in all caps, I hate the drama, helping my nervous system or hindering it by adding more stress to it? So starting to really get honest with yourself is a first stage of dealing with it. Then we have, in the book, there's a whole series of practices and exercises. How do you start to interrupt the pattern? And that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. It's not like just going, oh, I picked up the drink, I'm going to set it down. It's like, oh, here I am in all these different ways. I'm revving myself. How do I step back from it? How do I step back from this gossip? How do I step back from this story I just created? And how do I step back from all these ways in which I am creating or have sought this stress, even though I had no idea I was doing it? Then we're going to get to a point where it's like, okay, there's enough space. I'm not going to reflexively take myself out of emotional processing. I've created the space to start to go, I'm going to address the trauma. I'm going to address the underlying thing that's been hidden in a cocoon of numbness. And then you will deal with a lot of things, what it's like to start to feel more nuances of things, to feel the multiple flavors of an apple, as opposed to I remember when I was working with someone and I had her bite an apple on the first time and she was like, it's neutral. And then we really went in and slowed down till she could start to taste the flavors of an apple. Because one of the things with an addiction to drama is the mundane, which is full of life and richness, or excuse me, the normal becomes mundane, and we bypass the richness of subtleties of life and rely on the extremes for what we think of as life. So to come back to something like an apple and taste it is profound. And then there's a whole process of, like I said, moving through that stress, processing it, metabolizing it, not stress, trauma. And then there's this whole really difficult process of, letting the identity around the addiction to drama go, the sense of that we are a victim in life, the sense that life is against me. So we have to rewire our perceptions, we have to rewire our sense of reality and who we are in that reality as part of this healing process. Else we'll just keep repeating it.
I'm reminded of sugar detoxing. Or I remember when I was beginning to eat healthier in my 20s, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, a blackberry doesn't taste as good as a Starburst blackberry flavor, whatever it is, And then you finally take that away, and now I have conventional candy, and I'm like, oh my God, all I taste is sugar. There's no there's no like subtleties of notes versus like, or coffee right now. I used to just have lattes like unsweetened. For some reason in pregnancy, I just crave way more sugar. And so throughout my pregnancy, I was like putting like 3 tablespoons of honey in there. And I'm like, well, it's local honey. It's still good for me. And so now I'm still trying to like detox from that. And it's funny because my husband will make me coffees and he knows what my goal is right now. So he'll put in the amount that he wants to put in. And then he'll come around the corner and he's like, are you putting more honey in? And I'm like, well, if whatever honey you put in is free honey because I didn't see it. This is the only honey that I see going into this. It's a whole thing. But once you get to the point of actually not overwhelming your taste buds with sugar, you can actually taste the notes, the subtle notes of a really good coffee or a glass of wine if that's your thing or whatever it is. And so the detox process isn't just about getting to a place where everything's just boring and so you don't feel anything at all. It's actually being able to feel the real things, like the subtle notes of joy and real
Anger,
enthusiasm, or
everything.
knowing when you're actually angry versus when you just sort of manufactured it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm obsessed with frozen blueberries right now.
Oh, they're good.
So good. And
my toddler eats them every day, frozen blueberries.
Your toddler and I are also twins. But it's like I have friends who love like cakes and sugar, and I'm like, a blueberry. And like the grit of the blueberry, and they're like, you have way too much time on your hands. And I'm like, no, I've just slowed down enough to taste the flavors of life, as opposed to having like the overwhelm of life drive me and sweep me away as though that's what living is. And so
isn't it funny how like we assume, because people say that a lot. That's like a phrase people use. You have too much time on your hands. It's like, what, to stop and spell life?
Yeah.
Like to actually experience things? Yes, too much time on my hands. But I love leaving listeners with a practice to really focus on, to embody what we've learned in this episode. So if you were to leave them with one thing to focus on this week, what would it be?
Yeah. I would say take the time to taste your food. Like, since we've been doing that or having that conversation, this was a practice I did in my 20s and then returned to it later with more capacity, which was I would spend about 6 hours. No, I'm just kidding. I did in college spend an hour a day eating mango and ice cream as my meditation. But to slow down and take as long as you can, like bring the food to your lips, feel the texture of it, feel the qualities that emerge, the notes, as you said, the subtle flavors that come as the first chew and the second chew, and feel how your tongue moves the food, and follow it down as it moves through your throat. I mean, we might not be used to this level of attention, but to really take the time to discover the layers of something as opposed to the overgeneralization of it. Because that's what happens in addiction and drama. Everything is overgeneralized. My bad moment of the day becomes a bad day. That fight that we had a week ago becomes, this relationship isn't working. And so to go from an overgeneralization into the nuances and the complexities of something as easy as food will support you in being able to do that in the complex realm of emotions.
I need this in my life right now. It's something I did in my 20s also when I was recovering from bulimia. But now I have a newborn. And so my meals, I actually just ate lunch before getting on this call and I ate in like 45 seconds. It's like,
Oh,
how whole can I swallow my food? Because I have 1 minute before I know that my baby will awake. So I think this is a great practice. And just, I think it also helps to bring back to all of the beautiful things that we can feel, the sensations that we have at our fingertips that aren't going to erupt our lives in some ways. And I love that overgeneralization tip because yeah, like you are chewing and it's just a hamburger, but what's actually on there? It's like grass-fed beef with a bun and lettuce and tomato. Like what's in between? What creates that hamburger? And so
yeah.
bringing that into all the areas of your life, like what creates this joy? What are the subtle notes of feeling that I'm feeling underneath this big emotion that I'm used to kind of identifying with, and what subtleties can I find? So thank you so much for this book. I think it was needed. I recognize that I've come a long way since my peak addiction to drama, but there's still quite a ways to go. So for listeners that are interested in learning more about you and your book, where's the best place for them to connect?
Yeah, they can check out my website, drscottlyons.com. It's DRSCOTTLYONS.com. There's information about my podcast. There's information about my book. There's a quiz. Are you addicted to drama? Do you know someone addicted to drama? It's a fun little quiz. And lots of other information, as well as I'm on social media like Instagram at Dr. Scott Lyons as well. And I hear I'm on TikTok as well.
You just found out
I just found out.
you're a viral audio or trending audio. You don't even know why.
I just found out I have 10 million followers on TikTok, but I've never actually stepped foot on the app. So who knows? I'm just kidding.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/295. And you've already heard your challenge for this week. Actually slow down and taste your food. This might seem unrelated to drama addiction, but when you think about it, that's where all mindfulness begins, is actually tuning into your body and the sensations that you're feeling, hearing, seeing, tasting. And food is a really pleasurable way to get that entry point. When you do engage in this practice, you'll often see how much is actually going on in your mind. The fact that maybe you want to watch TV or scroll your phone while consuming and tasting and swallowing. And it's no wonder why most of us can't tune into our own hunger cues, let alone our intuition or our more subtle energies. And if, while you're doing this, you want to go even deeper into creating a life around mindfulness, the best way to do that is by joining the Mind Love membership. You can find out more information at mindlove.com/membership. Every month, we get new master classes that help you to really immerse yourself into the content. Because I know how easy it can be to just listen and then go about your day without actually applying any of the things that you're learning from these episodes. So the Mind Love membership holds your hand and walks you through that to where you can create a peaceful life for yourself. So find out more at mindlove.com/membership. The last 2 months, the masterclasses have been incredible, diving into self-discipline and goal setting, which have been heavily requested topics. So if you've been wanting to do something big or you've been wanting to get your life more manageable, join the Mind Love membership at mindlove.com/membership. You can also find all of my amazing sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. And if you love this episode, please consider sharing it. We all have that one friend that comes to mind when we're thinking about drama addiction. So take a screenshot, share this on social media, or share it directly with a friend or family member. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.